I look at you today, I see the one thing that makes Canada a unique country in the world. I see an extraordinary diversity.
Not in my ability to bring about change, but in yours. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you. May God continue to bless.
My name is Professor Antoinette Handley, and it is my very distinct pleasure to welcome you to the Department of Political Science. I am currently the chair of that department and wanted to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about who we are as a department, what it is that we do, and why we would love to have you join us. Now, maybe the first and most important thing for me to address is the question of what political science ultimately is, because it's a pretty broad and diverse field. Having said that, at its heart, at the root of what political science is really pretty basic and straightforward. Political science is ultimately about the study of power. Yes, power. Power, of course, most often exercised by the state, often through its coercive mechanisms like the police and the army, but also in more indirect or perhaps invisible ways. But political science is not only or always about the state or about government. Think, for example, about how we use the term politics in everyday language. We might talk, for example, about office politics that have nothing to do with politicians or government. Or think about the interpersonal politics that can pertain in the most intimate and personal areas of our lives, in our friendships, or in our homes or households. And so political science is concerned with power in this very broad and expansive sense. What is power? Who holds it? And who wants it? How is it exercised? And how does it ultimately and fundamentally shape people and institutions? And maybe I can illustrate this a little bit more concretely by telling you a bit of my own personal history and how I came to be a student of political science. I grew up in what was then apartheid South Africa. So when I was your age, my country was pretty much in turmoil. A state of emergency had been declared, and in the city where I would begin my university education, in and around that city, there was a low-grade but nonetheless deadly civil war that was being waged. It wasn't unusual to see military vehicles like tanks patrolling the city streets. Hundreds of South Africans were detained under the state of emergency without any access to a trial. The freedom of the press and freedom of expression was routinely curtailed. So you might pick up a newspaper in which a story on the front page was effectively blacked out. And on occasion, the police and the military forces would place spies in our classrooms and in our student organizations. So this was the environment in which I finished high school and began at university. In this environment, there was not much doubt how much politics mattered. Now, I know that your high school experience will likely have been very different from mine, not simply because it occurred in a different time and place, or is occurring in a different time and place, but perhaps one that is no less challenging. You certainly don't need me to tell you that we are living in unprecedented times. Yes, COVID. But I think also, for example, of the urgent challenge to meaningfully tackle anti-Black racism. And here in North America and in Canada specifically, the racism directed towards Indigenous communities. I think of what's unfolding to the south of us in our very powerful neighbor, and the political chaos and polarization that we see playing out there in the run-up to those elections. And perhaps at an even more global and existential level, I think of the challenge of climate change. The tools that political science gives us to analyze and to understand the world around us have perhaps never been more important. So we would love to have you join us here in the department to explore together the world in which we live and how you, as the current and future citizens of that world, might shape and change it. Please take a look at the clips that will follow me. And as you do that, remember that one of the very real advantages about pursuing a course of study at the University of Toronto and in the Department of Political Science in particular is that you will have here an amazing opportunity to study personally with some of the brightest minds and some of the best researchers working anywhere in the world, even in your very first year with the university. And so let me hand you over to some of those fantastic colleagues so that they can tell you a little more about the courses that they will be offering. I wish you all the very best, and I look forward very much to having the opportunity at some point in the not too distant future to meet you personally.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
I'm John Lindsay, an assistant professor at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy and the Department of Political Science. You know, if you would have told me in college that I'd end up as a political science professor, I never would have believed you. In college, I studied philosophy and computer science, and I was really interested in questions about artificial intelligence and whether machines could think, and if not, why not? And then after college, I joined the United States Navy, basically to pay for my tuition bills. And while I was in the Navy, I got to do a lot of interesting things. I worked with pilots at Top Gun. I worked with Navy SEALs. I got to hang out in garden spots like Iraq. And I realized that I was having an effect on international politics, but I really didn't understand it. So I went back to school, and the more I learned about global politics, the more I realized that everything else that I was interested in had a political angle. So now a lot of my research really looks at the interaction between technology and politics. I ask questions about how digital technology and the interdependence of the global system changes and shapes politics. But I also look at the ways in which politics may shape the ways in which actors use and deploy those technologies. So in the political science department, I teach a second-year course with Janice Stein. This is POL 211 on intelligence, deception, disinformation in global politics. Now you can't turn on the news or log onto the internet these days without running into Russian trolls, American disinformation, Chinese internet control, worries about surveillance from Facebook and Google or from states around the world. So there's a lot of these really interesting issues that have to do with classic problems of espionage, subversion, propaganda that are now taking place in the digital environment. So it's a really fun class to look at some classic political issues and to introduce you to problems in global politics by focusing on some of these pressing digital intelligence and disinformation problems that we are all dealing with on a daily, weekly basis. In the past, I've also done an upper division course on grand strategy. And this is looking at how different countries mobilize military power, diplomatic power, soft power or culture, economic and trade power to try and make their way in the international system. So that's a really fun course. So I hope that I will see you in one or both of those, but I guess I would just make a pitch to you that no matter what you find yourself interested in college right now, and these may be really important questions about ethics and philosophy, they may be scientific questions about climate change or emerging technical systems. This may be questions about economics and business, right? Political science touches on all of these. So I invite you to take some of our courses and learn a little bit about that. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Hi, I'm Dixon Ayo, the undergraduate director in political science, and I'm here with one of my esteemed colleagues, Professor Janice Stein, probably among the most preeminent political scientists in Canada and across the world. And just a quick chat for her to introduce herself and the department. So, Janice.
So nice to be with you, and hello to everyone.
Thank you. So let's just go to the point. Like, why in the world did you decide to become a political scientist and a political science professor?
It was a really unusual decision. I, as a young child, was disturbed by the headlines about war that I was reading. And I asked my parents to explain why people would fight each other and kill each other. They didn't really have a great answer. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting puzzle that I want to study. But when I went to graduate school in Broadway to study international security, there were no women.
Wow.
There were no women in that field whatsoever. I came back to Canada to start my teaching and research career here. No women.
Wow.
I spent 10, 15 years alone as a single woman in the field before and the next generation of women actually came along, to my delight.
That's amazing. I didn't know that, even having known you as a graduate student and a colleague for quite a few decades. Okay, now I know that since you've been, at least since I've known you, you've always, for the most time, been interested and did teach first-year introductory courses, which reflects a kind of deep interest in young people getting into the discipline. So, what was the motivation for that?
You know, Dixon, it goes beyond even an interest in young people going into the field, as important as that is. For many students who take a first-year course or a second-year course, that's what they will take. They have other interests. And I think it's so important for young people to learn about the big challenges facing the world, to have a global perspective on the problems that we're facing. You know, we are all right now living through COVID-19 together. That's not a Canadian problem. That's not a North American problem. It's a global problem. Sure. And those first-year courses are just a unique opportunity to get students interested and excited about global challenges. And you know that the treat for me is I will walk down the street in a city in Canada and somebody will come up to me and say, well, I took your course, and ever since then, I've always been interested. I read, I follow the news. That's the best reward that I can get.
Okay. One more question, last question. Our students are always interested in what do you do with a degree in political science? You've trained a lot. Yeah.
So many interesting things to do now. Let me say to the students, there's probably never been a better time to study political science. People are understanding whether it's markets, that markets alone are not the answer, that government plays a hugely important role. Whether it's a big global health challenge, governments play a hugely important role. Whether it's thinking hard about cybersecurity, governments matter. So fortunately, our students will go into a world where we are writing the balance and people are understanding how important government is to all of us.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's all the time we have, but hopefully we'll get a longer conversation for the departmental website soon. Thanks, Janet.
A pleasure, Dixon.
Ciao.
We must want our fellow human beings to have rights and freedoms which give them dignity.
And be that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights once and for all.
Hi, my name is Dilas Kennedy and I want to tell you a bit about POL 107, a first-year course in political science that I'll be teaching next year, and about the Department of Political Science more generally. POL 107 is one of the courses you can take next year if you decide to join the political science program. It is titled What Went Wrong, and as the title suggests, it studies all kinds of disasters, from how we mismanage natural disasters to man-made disasters like Chernobyl, from wars to climate change and pandemics. All and every example of spectacular failures can be studied in this course. What we're trying to do is answer one big question. How come, with all the sophistication of our technology and our knowledge, we still are able to get things so terribly and tragically wrong? Political scientists try to identify all kinds of patterns and recurring dynamics of politics, the workings of power and interest groups, and social interactions, and the dynamics that basically underpin our political and social environments. And in this course, we're going to be using all the tools, all the theories that political science has to offer in order to try and analyze all these disasters that I just mentioned. During the course, we'll visit arguments from a lot of subfields of political science, from political psychology all the way to game theory and ethics and intersectionality and realpolitik. Name it, we're going to study it. Not only that, the course will also help you develop all kinds of skills that will be hopefully helpful for you as you go through the program and even after you graduate in the job market. For example, like most political science courses, this course will focus on developing your research and writing skills, your ability to make persuasive arguments, and to think critically about other people's arguments. So I hope you decide to join us next year in POL 107 and in political science more generally, so that we can not only study what went wrong, but also start paving the road towards doing things right.
The very right to be human is denied every day to hundreds of millions of people as a result of poverty and the unavailability of basic necessities.
Hi, my name is Madeline Bauer, and I'm in my 4th year pursuing a specialist in political science in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. I'm also the president of the Association of Political Science Students, which is the undergraduate student union for political science students at U of T. The APSS hosts different academic and social events throughout the year to engage with the political science community at U of T. These events range from academic panels with different professors and professionals, to mentorship events with different alumni, to just socials with other student unions at the university. We're meant to act as a support for the political science students at U of T while they complete their degree. I decided to pursue a degree in political science because it allowed me to take a wide variety of courses that really interested me. The foundation courses that you're required to take are great to build upon with these different electives. And through my degree, I've been able to take a wide variety of classes, including topics that have covered Canadian government and politics, U.S. foreign policy, and theories of international organization. These classes have really prepared me, since not only have I learned really interesting topics, but I've also gotten a great experience with my research and writing. My skills in research and writing have really improved throughout my time in the political science program, and I know that these will be really important to me in grad school, and I'm hoping to build upon this foundation when I go to grad school.
I simply ask that the right to learning should be given to every child. I ask for nothing else.
Political scientists study social movements like Black Lives Matter. We study climate change policies and negotiations and why they break down. We study public school policy. We study cities and urban politics. We study elections and electoral systems. We study the politics of race, class, ethnicity, sexuality, gender, and religion. We study business and how corporations are involved in politics. We study Indigenous rights and Indigenous politics and the politics of reconciliation. We study the public provision of goods and services and the absence of such public provision. And we do all of these things everywhere in the world. In the real world of politics, the introductory course I teach, we explore major current political issues such as climate change, the crisis of democracy, the promise and limits of liberalism, the role of social movements in politics, race and politics in Canada, COVID and the politics of the pandemic. This year, we're definitely covering the US election. So in terms of substantive content, the goal of the course is to use the tools and the analytical frameworks of political science to help us understand more deeply what is happening in the world. The course also teaches skills like critical reading and critical thinking, and the assignments are all designed to teach you how to write, or maybe just how to write better. So in short, you should come to the University of Toronto and you should take my course. I look forward to seeing you next year. Thanks very much.